All right, advanced math, unit 1, morning review. We're going to go through this. Number 1, I just asked the question. How many terms?
2.
2. The first term has multiple factors. The second term has multiple factors. What is the common factor between the two? X and x minus y. Okay. Now, you can factor as is or do substitution. Any suggestions? Substitution. If you like factoring at as is, go ahead and do it as is and see if we come up with the same answer. We're going to let u equal x minus y. So then I have x squared u minus xu squared. Is that correct?
Yes.
Are those like terms? Can I combine them and call them like u to the third or? No. Okay. So, GCF. What is my GCF? XU. Now, not x squared because they only have one x in common and they only have one u in common. Parentheses, xu times what gives me the first term?
X.
Minus xu times what gives me the second term? U. Thank you. In that basket on the left, keep going. No, that far, right there. Is the, this that we're working on. We just started. What was that?
Could you please just zoom in a little?
Oh, yes. Okay. Guys, so we're ready to plug back in x u, bigger parentheses, x minus u. I'm just putting parentheses in place of the u's. So what do I put here where the u used to be?
X minus y.
Good. Someone put the x minus y here and an x minus y there and combine. Well, clean up. This I can't do anything to because it's already factored. And can I leave the nested parentheses?
No.
If in order to drop them, what do I have to do with this negative? Distribute. I only distribute the negative when the parentheses is to the right of the negative. If it's before the negative, would I distribute the negative? No. I would distribute a number if there were a number there. X minus x plus y. What happens here when I combine like terms?
It's just y and y.
It's just y. So my answer is going to be y. Oh, how about xy? Because what's out front already? X. So the x and the y from there, xy parentheses, what? X minus y. Did anybody do it without substitution? Same answer? Same answer. I'll put it up here quickly if you did it and did not get the same answer. That's it there without u substitution. Okay. Moving on to number 2. How many terms? 4. Does anybody remember 4 terms is factored by grouping? Does anybody Okay. It's either a 3-1, a 1-3, or a... Does anybody remember which one I suggested you look for first? Either one of these. It's easier to check these, and if those don't work, then the 2-2. Cover my last term. X squared plus 6x plus 9. Does that look like a perfect square trinomial? It does. If I were to try the last 3, does that look like a perfect square trinomial? No. Okay. Double bubble. So we're going to test the, what did we say, 3-1?
Yes.
Okay. Double bubble. It's going to be x into x plus and plus and what?
3.
Plus 3 plus 3. If it's a perfect square trinomial, should those two come out to be the same?
Yes.
That's the whole reason why it has to be a perfect square trinomial. So I can now do what kind of factoring? Dots, difference of 2 squares. Substitution or no substitution?
No.
You guys are okay without it?
Yeah.
Okay, big parentheses, blank plus y. Big parentheses, blank minus y. That first part of factoring, did I do it correctly? If I called that u, that would be u plus y, u minus y. What do I plug in?
X plus 3.
X plus 3. And can I leave the nested parentheses? No. So I distribute if there's anything to distribute. Let's check the first one. Is there anything to distribute out in front? So x plus 3 plus y. Is there anything to distribute out front here? Now the parenthesis came before the negative, so do I distribute the negative backwards? No. Parentheses x plus 3 minus y. Are there any like terms?
Y and negative y.
Are they in the same parentheses?
Oh, no.
No. So are there like terms? No. Is regrouping going to help me factor? No. So this there is your final answer. Sean,
Oh, yeah.
would you like to move up closer so you can see the board a little better? I'm going to have you sit right there. Here, I'll hold that for him and you can see. Thank you. All right. Questions on 1 or 2? Okay. Number 3. How many terms? 4. Let's check if it's a 3-1 or a 1-3. I'm going to cover the last term. No. What about the is it? That's a 5. Even if I regrouped it, would the first term and the last term be a perfect square? No. So it must be a 2-2. Sometimes you do have to regroup. Let's see if this is one of those cases. What's the GCF on the first part? X squared, leaving behind x minus 5. What's my GCF here? 3 or negative 3?
Negative.
Negative 3 times positive 5 would give me that negative 15. There's an x, and is it plus or minus? You said minus, because negative 3 times negative x would give me a plus, a positive 3x. All right. Do I have a GCF? Not yet. Okay, first off, you see there's 2 terms, and that's almost the common factor. I have to change the second one. I pull out the negative, and do I pop it to the front or right in the middle?
In the middle.
In the middle, because that's the front of this term. So, x squared stays, x minus 5 stays, minus 3 becomes a positive 3, and when you take out a negative, what happens to the 5 minus x?
X minus 5.
Because that's the opposite. Negative x becomes positive x, positive 5 becomes negative 5, and now we're ready to complete. Okay, so what's my common
X minus 5.
x minus 5? Did you have a question? Okay. X minus 5. When I factor out the common factor, what's left behind?
X plus 3.
Anything else I can do? No, this is the answer. Okay. Next one. Yes, I'm going to skip 4. What kind of factoring is that? Yeah, you're right. Difference of 2 squares. All right. Substitution or no substitution? Substitution. My last class said yes as well. So I'm going to take u, and I'm going to let u equal x squared plus 5y squared. Got it? So that gives me, there's squares inside of here, but is there a square on the outside here?
Yes.
So it's not just u, it's going to be u squared minus y squared. Okay. Difference of 2 squares.
X minus
U.
xy and then u plus xy.
Do you guys agree with her? Okay, she said u minus 6xy and u plus 6xy. Is that correct? Okay, if I stop here, why would I get it wrong?
Yeah, just substituted that.
I have to put the stuff, the u, substitute it back in, 6xy, and then blank plus 6xy. And let's fill in the blank. What was it to begin with? X squared plus 5y squared. x squared plus 5y squared. And what does that, okay, is there anything to distribute here? No. X squared plus 5y squared minus 6xy, and there's nothing to distribute because I don't distribute the negative backwards. Next one, is there anything to distribute?
No.
So x squared plus 5y squared plus 6xy. And you had one very similar to this on the quiz. If you stopped here, you would get it
You
wrong.
could double bubble.
Okay, she's correct. She's correct. We can double bubble, we can factor, but before we factor, what do we have to do?
Take out.
Yes.
There's an x squared here and an x there, but does that one have an x?
No.
No, there's a y there, a y there, y squared, a y. Does that one have a y?
No.
So is there a GCF?
No.
What do we have to do with everything first? Rearrange. We have to regroup it, rearrange it before you factor. Please remember that for the test, because it happens and kids always mess it up. All right, and I even gave you that hint during the quiz yesterday. I said, don't forget to regroup and factor, and I think I even said number 1.
Yep.
Okay,
I didn't do it.
and some people didn't, yeah. All right, so where are we at? We're over here. So what would I write? X squared,
Minus 6xy
Mhm.
plus 5y squared.
good. And the next one would be
X squared plus 6xy plus 5y. Isn't that supposed to be squared?
that is. Thank you. 5y squared. Some kids forgot the squared completely, like they just put x plus 5y minus 6y. X plus 5y plus 6y. They forgot these little squares because when they did the difference of two squares, but the little squares were inside attached. This is the square you no longer write. All right, double bubble for the first one. What does that factor to?
1x.
Minus 5 and plus 1, or minus 1, I mean.
What is y?
Good. If I got it like, if I put it like this, why would it be wrong? You said what?
Because when you combine it's not going to be a y.
Right. It's going to be negative 5x, negative 1x, which is negative 6x. So what do I put at the end of the 5? And at the end of the y? End of the 1, sorry. I could just make it y. And would that give me the positive 5y squared at the end?
Yes.
Yes. All right, next one, double bubble. X and x, it looks like it's plus and plus. Plus what? 5y and y. Got it? And we're going to get them back in just a little bit.
Oh, so I just did it like, what do they call it? Dump. I just did it. I can't do it.
Okay, but it's not done.
So like you need to take out the negative 5.
I'll show you right now. Guys, if you wanted to, could you up here double distribute minus that, rearrange and combine and factor? Yes, it will work. The only thing is, can I put it up here?
Alright.
Okay, so he did that. It's up to you. Where is it at? Is it right here? Okay, so he expanded the top one and had that combine like terms factor to this. There's only one thing you did not do. What kind of factoring can you still do on the first term? Not GCF, difference of two squares and the same thing there. So factor and factor, then you'd have the same answer. Thank you. Okay, are we good?
Sure.
Number 5, substitution or no substitution?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, and we're going to let u equal x squared plus 7x plus 5. And what would that change my problem to? Instead of all that craziness, what would I have? U squared plus 12u plus 35?
Yep.
And then when you see this, what kind of, good, it's a double bubble, guess and check. Sorry. All right, go ahead and factor now. We know it's going to be plus plus according to our signs. All right, plus plus what?
7 and 5.
7 and 5. And then we plug back in. blank, I'm gonna make that a little bit bigger. What was that? The U, good. So blank plus 7, big parentheses, blank plus 5, big parentheses. What do I plug in the blank where the U used to be?
X squared plus 7x plus 5.
X squared plus 7x plus 5. Is there anything to distribute on either inside parentheses?
No.
So what do we do with them?
Combine those terms.
Drop them and then combine like terms. X squared plus 7x plus
12.
5 plus 7 is going to be plus what?
12.
Good. X squared plus 7x plus 5 is going to be 10.
40.
Um,
35. This is plus 35 at the end.
where?
Oh, I was like that. At the end of the 5,
Right here?
like up, this is 30. I'm so confused.
The 35 right here?
Oh, you already did that.
It's here. Yeah, 7 times 5 is 35.
So plus 10.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to write it x squared plus 7x plus what?
10.
You're a step ahead of me. This one is, I'm right here, plus
No, I don't know. 12.
12. And the next one you said was 10. X squared plus 7x plus 10. So far, so good?
Double bubble.
And then we double bubble each one of these. Is there a definite one like this on the test? There sure is.
Yeah. There's one on the quiz like that.
And there was, you're right, there was one on the quiz as well. Okay, first one, x and x, and it looks like it's going to be plus and plus, what?
3 and
3 and
4.
4.
3 and 4, does it matter if you put 4 and 3?
No.
No. This next one looks like it's also going to be plus and plus,
5 and 2.
5 and 2, or 2 and 5. Whew. Make sure you study these. If you want an extra blank one, I can give you one, or I have I have them posted on my website. You can print it off there as well. Some kids like to do it again on their own just to make sure they understand, and if they mess up, they have all the work so they can check it. All right, 6, true and false. Kids
False.
struggle with these quite often. First one you said is what?
False.
False. Agree or disagree?
Agree.
It is false. Why is it false? Where did the kid mess up?
They dropped the negative.
Oh,
And the 5.
the 5 was up, right?
No, the
Okay.
negative, it's negative 5.
The negative 5 stays where it's at, and only the x to the negative 2 moves to the bottom and becomes x to the positive 2. That's the way we should write it. Should we write it the way they did up here?
No.
No, please be careful. Why do kids think you have to move it? They think it's attached to the x, but it's not in parentheses. Or they say, oh, it's negative, so the negatives move. But that's not a negative exponent, it's a negative coefficient. Do you see the difference? Okay, next one. That's a negative exponent, you move it to the top, you get x squared, true or false?
True.
True?
Wouldn't it be negative?
Because if it's x
True.
squared, never mind.
What explain?
Yeah.
Oh.
It is false. Why?
Because it says x to the negative 1.
Okay, this is x to the negative 1, which means I can move it to the top, right?
Yes.
And doesn't that become x squared? Where did I mess up in my work?
The negative bottom.
That negative, when I move this up, it takes care of the negative exponent, but what happens to the negative coefficient?
Yeah.
It's still there. So what's x squared divided by negative 1? And is negative x squared the same as positive x squared?
No.
No, think of your graphs. X squared is a parabola opening up. Negative x squared is a parabola opening down. It's not the same answer, so it is false. Okay, questions before we move on? All right, let's flip on to the inside to number 7.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, now, I still had kids messing this up on the test, on the quiz. Let's do the first step first. What am I going to do here?
Double bubble.
Okay. I need a common denominator when I'm adding fractions, adding or subtracting. I am going to hold off on this one here. let's factor this. X plus and x minus what?
X plus 2, x minus 5.
Plus 2 minus 5. Do you guys agree with her? Okay. What do I know about the x minus 5 and the 5 minus x?
5 minus x, you have to switch the sign.
Okay, she said you can switch the 5 minus x to an x minus 5, but you have to switch the sign. The plus becomes a minus. Why? Because I factored out a negative. Don't forget that. We took out a negative, which made the positive 5 a negative 5, and the negative x a positive x. All right, now what's my common denominator?
X minus 5, x plus 2.
X minus 5x plus 2. I'll often have kids say, isn't it x minus 5 squared? Because there's 2 of them. There are 2, but how many do they have in common? 1. There's 1 in each. Okay, x minus 5 and x plus 2. Is the first fraction missing anything, yes or no? So it's equivalent to multiplying by 1. Will it stay x squared plus 10? Yes? Second fraction, what are we missing?
X minus plus 2.
Okay, now I forgot to ask when I first started this. Am I multiplying everything by the same thing and reducing, canceling out, or am I only multiplying by what's missing? Okay, I had a few kids on the quiz. In each class, multiply everything by the same and they crossed out all the denominators. When is the only time we do that?
More complex.
Complex. As I was walking around yesterday, I had some kids ask, what is a complex fraction?
The
Fractions within a fraction. This right here, number 11 is a complex fraction. That's when you clear it. So if you think you made that mistake, make a note to yourself. Clear when it's a complex fraction, bless you, and only multiply by what's missing when it's not a complex fraction. All right, I'm gonna have you guys put your phones away. You guys will be paying attention. So, what do I distribute? X.
plus 2x.
Okay. X squared plus 2x is what I heard. And there's a minus sign there, so it's minus x squared plus 2x. No one's going to stop me?
X squared minus 2x.
Why is it minus 2x? Okay, so I had kids mess that up as well on the quiz. When I get the quizzes back, look for those things. If you mess them up, make a note to yourself. Don't do this on the test. When you're distributing on fractions, if it's a negative, that negative has to distribute. All right, what are we left with? The x squareds are gone, leaving behind but then
A negative 2.
then we take out a negative 2.
No, you take out positive because the negative is positive.
No.
Never mind.
Okay, let's check. X plus or minus 5? If I took out a negative,
X minus 1.
minus, and the bottom is,
X plus 2.
all right, and x minus 5?
Those cancel.
Do they cancel out? Leaving behind what in the numerator?
Negative 2 over
X plus 2.
Okay, what was the question? Right here.
Okay. Yeah.
X squared plus 10, we didn't multiply by anything but a 1. So it's x squared plus 10 stays. Okay. All right. Questions on that one?
No.
You guys, every single problem I'm doing with you, expect something like that on the test. Okay, there's others, but I typically pick the ones that kids struggle with the most. Okay, number 8. You need this one, and we've done this one in homework before. Your choice. Address the negative on the outside first or the ones on the inside first. It is your choice. Listening, please. Listening, please. One question I have, is it okay to distribute that negative exponent from the get-go? No, because there's what on the inside? Plus or minus, you cannot distribute exponents. Okay, so choices are here. There's one method I like better because I feel like it's easier, but kids do struggle with that method more. So I'm just going to show you your options. No, because I'm not going to work it all the way. I'm going to let you guys pick. First way is you address the negatives on the inside. So that's 1 over, you're not writing this down yet because we're going to pick 1 over x squared plus 1 over y. Ignore that on the outside and find a common denominator, multiply by what's missing. The way that I like better is I treat all of this as a base, and that negative 1 moves it to the bottom. But when it moves to the bottom, this is the negative exponent I took care of. The negatives on the inside are still there. Okay. My last class said they didn't like this way because the negative exponents, they felt like they would have messed that up. So, because they felt like, oh, when I moved it to the bottom, these exponents become positive, which is wrong. This is the exponent that became positive. So which method would you rather me do? First or second? Second. This one is easier because what can you do after you move it? Make everything a fraction. I shouldn't say it's easier because they actually both work out nicely. Okay, so 1 over, when I make this a fraction, is it one big fraction or two individual? 1 over x squared and 1 over y. And then you multiply everything by what? X squared y. Is anybody doing it the other way, the way I showed you first? If you are, that's fine. Okay, what do we get? You said everything by xy? Is that right? Oh, x squared y. Okay, what does that give me at the top? X squared y over x squared's gone, leaving behind y plus y is gone, so y plus what? Oh, I forgot. Can I reduce those x squareds?
No, because
The plus sign. Can I reduce the y's? No, for the same reason. If that was y times x squared, I could reduce. Got it?
Oh man,
Kids often do. All right, number 9. Questions on 8 before I move on to 9. Keep going? Okay. Negative exponents in here, no negative exponents out there. This is one term here. This term has how many terms inside? 2, or this factor, sorry, this factor has 2 terms inside. So we're going to clean that up first, kind of the way I was suggesting it or mentioned earlier. What does this become? 1 over minus times x squared y over. So I'm not ready to multiply first. I need you guys listening in the back. I'm not ready to multiply yet because I have to do what in here? Common denominator. Does everybody see that? What is my common denominator going to be? Can anybody do that next step in their head, like what's missing? What are you going to end up with? Y squared minus x squared. Do you guys agree with her? It's going to be dots, yes. And why is that? Because this first fraction has an x squared, but it's missing the y squared. The second one has a y squared, but it's missing the x squared. Oh. Does everybody see how she got the y squared minus x squared? Yes? All right, and then I heard dots. What does dots stand for? Okay, so I have y plus x, y minus x over x squared y squared times x squared y over x minus y. Okay. What reduces? The y minus x and the x minus y. Okay, are they opposites? Yeah, so when I cross them out, it leaves a negative behind. What else reduces? X squared and x squared? And both y's or just one set? So this is gone at the top. The denominator is left with what?
One y.
Just the y. Good. All right, so what do I have?
Negative y plus, negative.
Y plus x with the negative sign
Oh,
over,
y.
Wait, why isn't the negative?
Can you change it now?
can you change what now?
The negative or no?
Change it, okay, yes. Change, okay, hold on, yes.
Why did you put the negative in front of the first fraction rather than the second fraction?
Good question, because it doesn't matter where you put it when you're multiplying a negative. Negative 5 times 3 times 2, where you put that negative on the 5, the 2, or the 3 doesn't matter when you're multiplying. Do you agree?
Oh, yeah.
And the reason I put it to the front is so it's easy for me to see when I'm rewriting it. It doesn't get lost in the problem.
Okay.
Okay, now, if you wanted to, could you put the negative in the middle like this? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to put that a little more in the middle because that looks a little at the top. Okay, could you write it like this? Yes. Now, I want to tell you to be careful because I did have a handful of kids on the quiz write it like this. They put the negative and the y plus x. Is it okay to put it at the top without parentheses?
No.
No, because this is saying just the y is negative but the x is positive. But truly, if you were to distribute, what happens to both of them? They're both negative. Please do not make that mistake on the test. All right. Number 10. And I just told you guys a minute ago or two that everything we do today will be on the test. So do you need to know how to simplify these crazy ones? This one. We've seen it before, and it does feel overwhelmingly like, oh my goodness, it's so complicated. But once you work it through and get practice, it's going to be easy. Okay, let's work with this one first. What do I do here? Any suggestions?
7 times 1 over
Okay,
7 over 1.
7 times 1 over
7.
7. Or, nobody said it, but are they like bases so you can add the exponents? So 7 would stay 7. What's 1 plus negative 1? 0? And what's 7 to the 0?
1.
Am I going to get 1 as well when I do it this way? Does it matter which method you use? No, 7 times 1 over 7, or add the exponents and it's 7 to the 0. Either way, it's 1. All right, we did talk in class about what 1 to the x is. What is 1 to the x? 1. 1 to the 500 is 1. 1 to the negative fifth is still 1. And 1 to the 0 is 1. All right, 3 times 1 is?
3.
Okay, plus, when I have parentheses like this, the whole thing is being raised to the 0 power. What does that become? 1.
Which is 5.
So it's just 5.
They tricked me.
All right, we're ready to move on.
Yes.
Not really.
Next one. Need you guys listening. Okay. Is this a complex fraction?
Yes,
Which means I'm going to multiply everything by what's missing or by the same thing?
but same thing.
Same thing, because this is where I clear. Okay, so is x squared minus 4 right here, is that part of my common denominator?
There's a 1 under.
There's a 1 underneath. Please do that because kids often mess that up, and I've mentioned that to you before. When you put a 1 underneath, it is in the denominator, but it is not part of your denominator that's in this fraction. Okay. Multiply everything by what?
By x squared.
The square root of?
X squared minus 4.
Okay, square root of x squared minus 4 and the square root of x squared minus 4. All right. First one, what happens? The whole kids will say, "Oh, the whole thing is gone." No, the roots.
Cancels it out.
So I'm left with 2, and then the x squared minus 4. Where did I mess up?
There's
The 2 is there. I
Oh, you
didn't.
have to put parentheses.
Why?
Because it's distributed to both.
Good. Okay, I will distribute in just a little bit. Minus. What happens here?
It cancels each other out.
Do you want to distribute that x now or later?
later.
later since I didn't distribute there, x parentheses 2x plus 3 over x squared minus 4, and this square root of x squared minus 4, can anybody tell me why I would rewrite it as x squared minus 4 to the 1/2?
Because that's the same thing.
Because they have the same, starts with the B. Base. Because they have the same base and I'm multiplying it, what do I eventually want to do with the exponents? Add them. And when I add 1 plus 1/2, write it as an improper fraction, x squared minus 4 raised to the 3/2. Don't put 1/2 to the 3/2. Okay, at the top, should I leave the top like that?
Right.
No, it's not simplified. What do I have to do on the first parentheses? 2x squared minus 8, and on the second one?
Minus 2x to the second.
Mhm.
Minus 3x.
Okay, so why are we even distributing if factoring is typically what we do?
Yeah, cancel.
Because we want to combine like terms and see if we can reduce. Okay.
2x squared.
Do the x squareds undo each other?
This
Leaving behind negative
negative 3x squared minus 8.
3x squared or just 3x?
Oh, 3x.
Okay, negative 3x minus 8 over x squared minus 4 raised to the 3/2. Expect one of those on the test. If you wanted to, what could you do with the top? Take out the negative, put it with parentheses at the top, or just put it hanging right in front or at the bottom. It's your choice. You don't have to even take out the negative if you do not want to. Questions before we move on? Okay, we're continuing. Number 12. Okay, is this also a complex fraction?
Yes.
All right, I'm going to clean this one before I look for a common denominator, because that is what we do when we do these type of problems. I am going to
Simplify it.
factor which one? Yep. No, what is my
X minus 3. 4 and
x? 4 parentheses x minus 3. Do we all agree? Okay. 4 parentheses x minus 3. Now, what does it look like? I'm going to really quick. We're going to look for a common denominator. Is my common denominator going to be 4 x minus 3, 3 minus x?
4x minus 12 and x minus 3.
X minus 12. I don't have an x minus 12. Oh, you're saying put the 4 back in there?
Never mind.
We can, but it's going to make it more complicated.
Oh.
Okay, so is my common denominator all of them? The 4, the x minus 3, and the 3 minus x? Which one would I change to make life easier?
X minus 3. Flip it.
It doesn't matter which one. I'm going to flip this one, though, since I only have to change one of these. Because both of these are already x minus 3s. Do you see that? Okay, so have we done that before? We have. We haven't done it a whole lot with a complex fraction, but should you still know how to do it, even in a complex fraction? Yes. So 1 over 1 minus or plus? 5x over x minus 3. And the bottom is x over x minus 3 plus 1 over 4 times x minus 3. Now we're ready to clear.
That's so hard.
Now what is the common denominator?
X minus 3 and 4.
Good. The 4 and x minus 3. 4 parentheses x minus 3. And 4 parentheses x minus. Oh, and I forgot it right here. 4 parentheses x minus 3. All right. First piece. Does anything reduce? No, nothing cross reduces. There are ones at the bottom, which is good. Are you guys okay if we distribute the 4 now? You guys okay? You would remember to do that? 4x minus plus, does the x minus 3 cross out?
Yep.
Leaving behind 5x or 20x? All over. X minus 3 is gone, leaving behind 4x. And then this is gone. I had a few kids on the quiz, just leave it. It's gone, I don't write anything, so it's just 4x at the bottom. What should it be? 4x, what? Plus 1. Please don't forget that. When everything reduces, a 1 is left behind. Okay, let's combine. What do I get at the top? 24x minus 12. Can I GCF the top? What comes out? 12. 2x minus 1. Does anything reduce? This is your answer. But that's what I'm saying, guys. Print out a blank one or get a blank one for me and just try at least the harder ones on your own. And if you mess it up, you have all the work. You can watch the video because I will be posting it online later today. All right, last one. Yeah, I agree. How many terms?
2.
All right. Are there negative exponents as well? Yes. Yes. I'm not going to break up the video because if you only need one problem, if you need 13, are you going to watch the whole thing to get to 13? Yes. And I'm doing them in order, so it's not like, oh, where's 13? Middle, beginning, end. It's at the end. Got it? So you can fast forward, rewind. All right.
It's going to take a long time
To upload?
Yeah.
All right, guys. Listening. 2 terms. Now, the first term has a negative exponent. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay, so there's multiple factors. There's 2 factors here, guys. This right here is 1 term. Do you agree?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's going to be 1 fraction all its own. What is moving to the bottom?
The 4x plus 1.
Raised to what power?
Third, 1/3.
What's staying at the top?
13x squared minus 4x.
Okay, yes.
Could substitution apply?
You could use substitution. Did anybody want me to do that first instead? No? Okay. Minus, I can if anybody wants it at the end. Now, on this one, the second term,
It stays like that.
there's no negative exponents, right?
Don't put a 1 under it.
I put a 1 under it, and I'm going to move the 3x to the front only because I don't like it at the end. But you can leave it at the end if you like. Oh, 2/3. All right, what kind of problem is this? Common denominator, right? It's adding, subtracting, so no clearing. All right, what is our common denominator?
4x plus 1.
Raised to the... Does the first fraction get multiplied by anything? No, is the first one already have a common denominator? It's already matching. So technically you're multiplying by 1. You do not have to show that because multiplying by 1 makes the problem change or stay the same. Called the multiplicative identity. When you multiply by 1, it does not change anything. Second fraction, what do we multiply top and bottom by? To the 1/3. Why? Because the denominator is 1 and I want the denominator to be 4x plus 1 to the 1/3. All right, minus 3x is going to stay 3x. I often have kids ask about, well, don't I distribute it to both of them? No, because this is all multiplication. 3 times x times the 4x plus 1 to the 2/3. All right, are these 2 bases the same?
Yes.
So we add, so it's 4x plus 1 raised to what power? What's 2/3 plus 1/3?
1.
I'm not going to write that one eventually because we don't need it, but do you agree it's 1?
Yeah.
Because 2/3 plus 1/3 is 3/3, which is 1. All right. That exponent's not needed, so what do I do with the, do I leave it like this or how do I clean it up? I am going to rearrange. Before I do that, what do I have to do first right here?
Oh.
Distribute the what? Okay, so that's negative
12x
squared
yeah.
and then minus 3x. And now we combine like terms and see what can be done. Okay. You guys are telling me that becomes x squared
Yeah.
minus
3x
minus 4 all over 4x plus 1 over, I'm sorry, raised to the, can you factor the top?
Yes.
Yeah.
Double bubble, x, you said 1 and 4? Which one's positive, which one's
Plus
negative?
1, -4.
Plus 1, negative 4. Do you guys agree with her?
Yeah.
All right, does that allow me to reduce?
No.
So, is this answer the same?
Yes.
Yes, both answers are okay. It's up to you and how you write it. Whew. Questions?